his amazing book, How to Avoid Making the Big Relationship Mistakes. He is an author, a publisher, a certified relationship coach, a workshop facilitator, a radio presenter and DJ, and so much more. So guys, a warm UK Black Men Talk welcome live on Supreme FM for the amazing talent that is Nigel Beckles. Welcome, Nigel, to UK Black Men Talk Show on Supreme FM. Welcome.
Good morning, Ant. Making my head swell down here. It's sunny Kent.
Well deserved, Nigel, well deserved. Let's have a number from you and welcome back to UK Black Men Talk Show. What's your check-in number, Nigel, and a word?
Oh, check-in number? Probably seven. Okay. Content.
All right, Nigel's at 7 and content. Nigel, we're going to get straight to it because you know how time goes quickly, and thanks for coming on. The author segment resumes and Nigel will be back in October, guys, so we're going to get straight to it. Nigel Beckles, you have an amazing book out there, amazing works. We're going to look at the topic tasters, happily single, romance scams and stalkers. We're going to touch on that today. And guys, if you have anything to say, if you have any questions for Nigel, and he will be back, so you can send the questions at any time. 079 Nigel, let's start. Happily single, tell us about that.
Well, being single is a great thing. I think a lot of people tend to panic if they're single, or they may be feeling lonely, or they may be feeling desperate. But being single allows a lot of opportunities for positive things. You know, you can explore your own personal growth. You can focus on yourself. You know, you can build stronger connections with, you know, friends and family because you've got the time to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not as bad as some people seem to think it can be, but it's all about your mindset at the end of the day.
Right, mindset. Tell us a bit more about that, the mindset. How should people be thinking? Because some people are really feeling bad about being single.
Yeah, but then you see that, well, the first thing is it's the comparing yourself to other people. So if you've got 4 or 5 friends and they're all happily in relationships and you're not, and you're feeling a bit lonely and not wanted, that can lead you into some very difficult situations. Because as you mentioned, we're going to be talking about romance scams later on.
Yes.
But being single is nothing to be scared of. It's something I think people should embrace. I think you should know yourself very well before you even get involved with somebody else. One of my favorite sayings is, if you're not happy with yourself, you won't be happy with anybody else. That's just in a nutshell.
That's powerful.
If you're not happy in yourself and you're looking for someone to make you happy, well, by default, you are putting your happiness in someone else's hands.
There you go. Yes. Listeners, take this in, absorb this information. Nigel, a lot of people do think that if they are with someone, you hear people say that they feel better now because the other person who's so special, everything is focused on the other person, their happiness. We see that a lot of the times. We're talking about grown-ups here. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're talking grown folks. But what you're touching on there is codependency. So codependency basically is a very deep feeling of personal insecurity. So if someone's codependent, they will do anything and everything to A, find a relationship, and B, stay in that relationship, even if that relationship is abusive.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have to, and again, you know, if someone's lonely and desperate, they are automatically vulnerable to entertaining people who are not very nice, who are unbalanced. They may have undiagnosed personality disorders. It's a minefield out there. You know, as many people of a certain age can probably testify to. Dating is not an easy thing, and the older you get, the tougher it gets.
Right. And what does that look like? Because a lot of people are saying that dating arena, Nigel, some people have given up on it. Some people are saying, okay, they're working on self, but it's like they want to share with other person.
Well, you've got two things there. You've got growing individually and then growing together. Because as you know, there are couples who grow apart.
Yes.
You know, it's all bells and whistles at the beginning, but then, you know, things start to go wrong. And in terms of dating, again, it depends on a person's attitude. What I notice is that older women, and I have to speak of black women here.
Yeah.
As you know, I've got a couple of quite reasonably sized Facebook groups, but I tend to find that black women who are mature, they tend to be resistant to the idea of online dating. Now, online dating has its own hazards, but at the end of the day, it's the biggest industry in terms of dating that the world has ever seen, basically. I mean, if you look at the stats, I think worldwide the dating industry, they generated revenue of £373 million. Wow. That was last year. Mm-hmm. So it's big business. But then, you know, you have social media now. You have obviously dating apps, Tinder being the largest. So I don't see anything wrong with online dating. I just think, like anything else, you have to approach it in a sensible way.
Right. Are you hearing that, everyone? Because Nigel, what I want to do, because I know the time goes really quickly, and we have music on Black Men Talk and the interplay of music and the topics, and we played a song earlier called Online Love. So that kind of links me to asking you about, because it's about someone who was scammed online. So that leads us to go into the romance scam. We're just touching on it today. So yeah, let's enter romance scams, because could that be what some of the ladies are fearful of? They've heard things. Talk some more for us.
Well, it's not a new. I mean, it's not a new thing. I wrote about romance scams back in my first book back in 2015, and obviously the book came out in 2015. So the cases I was citing were 9-10 years ago. So it's nothing new. But again, in terms of if we're talking about romance scams,
yes.
Well, again, you're looking at a lot of scams and a lot of money. So, say for example, last year, I think in the UK, people lost around £88 million.
Wow. 88
on
million.
88 million pounds. And worldwide, according to, I think it was a Federal Trade Commission in the US,
yes,
worldwide it was 1.3 billion. So that's billion with a B. So it's big business. But again, it goes back to being happily single, because people who fall for these scams are usually lonely, bordering on desperate, if not desperate, for a relationship. So they're vulnerable, So at the end of the day, if you're lonely and vulnerable, like I said, there's nothing wrong with online dating. You just have to be sensible about how you approach it.
Yes, right. And in your book, lots of information about that, Nigel, how to avoid making the big relationship mistake.
Well, there is some information about online dating, because in the book I've got a section called online dating hazards. But in my new book coming out early next year, I've got more detailed information about romance scams, because obviously 8 years on, the problem has grown. As online dating has grown, so has the problem of romance scams, and people are losing, as I said, a lot of money. A lady I wrote about 8 years ago in the first book, she was in the process of losing her home because she fell for a romance scam. She found this guy online. He portrayed himself as a American soldier, and the romance, inverted commas, progressed, and she arranged to meet him at Heathrow Airport. He didn't turn up, and then she went to the police, and then it turned out it was a scam. But she'd given him so much money over the period of the scam, she was in danger of losing her house. Yeah, so anyone can fall prey. But if you're like desperate, you're lonely, and you're gonna fall into this kind of like romantic haze, that all is well. Because you see, by definition, a romance scam is a long distance relationship. So when someone's involved in a long distance relationship, they can conjure up a lot of different images in their head, romantic Mills and Boone kind of notions. So it's more in their imagination than actually what's happening in real life. Mm-hmm. But the long distance obviously gives the scammer a huge advantage, because all they're doing really, they're breadcrumbing their victims. So they promise them this, they'll promise them that, I'm coming to see you soon, blah, 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 etc. But in the meantime, they are persuading them to send them money. And so the lady in my book, it turned out the guy had used a fake picture, and it was what they call a 419 scam. So that's a penal code in Nigeria. So romance scams are often referred to as 419.
Right.
So it turned out he was a Nigerian guy living in Nigeria. But you could create, the thing with being online is, if you're dealing with a scammer, or if you're dealing with the general public, people put up the image they want to present. So if someone says, I'm in the army in uniform and standing in front of a tank, for example, you may not have any reason to doubt that. But again, there are certain safeguards a person can put if they are online dating and they do see someone they like online. But you have to pay attention. It's a bit like being a detective. You have to say to yourself, well, does this information add up? Yeah. And if you're interacting with them online, either you're DMing or you're on the phone. But then if someone's profile picture is of a white American, and when you're talking to them, they've got a Nigerian accent or whatever accent, well, that should be a red flag.
Indicates, yes. Absolutely.
But when people are desperate, they often ignore the obvious, sadly.
This is powerful because it's happening out there, and I've seen documentaries, Nigel, so much around this romance and scams. And I want to ask, well, some people are asking, because this happens again and again, how come people are not aware now?
Well, the thing is, it's a bit like chicken and the egg, isn't it? Because if you've not been through it, you're not really going to pay attention to it, are you? It's like if someone's never been in an abusive relationship, they're not really going to think about abusive relationships. On the other hand, someone who's been in an abusive relationship, is probably going to consume a great deal of their thinking while they're in the recovery process. Because in the recovery process, it's like, well, why did this happen to me? Why did I meet this person? Why did I allow it to continue for so long, etc., etc., etc. So, as I said, it's all about experience. So if you've never been scammed before, so you've never had a romance scam happen to you before, you're not really going to be thinking about romance scams. Even if you're quite active in terms of online dating, it's not really going to cross your radar until either it happens to you or it happens to someone that you know personally.
Right, so you think people are unaware, really, just not thinking that this could possibly be happening? Yeah.
Well, people are unaware, but it's not necessarily their fault.
No, definitely
because
not.
Because at the end of the day, I'm in the relationship field, as it were. So obviously, it's one of the things that comes up, during the course of my work. But in general terms, I don't think people have got enough information. And at the end of the day, if you're not dating or if you're happily in a relationship, a romance scam's not going to apply to you, is it? No. It only applies to single people. The other thing I should say is that the vast majority of romance scams are reported by women. That is not to say that men don't get scammed too, but male pride, men are less likely to report they've been the victim of a romance scam.
Yes, that is true. That is absolutely true, Nigel. And Nigel, okay, messages coming through, thumbs up to you, okay? And I can't wait for you to come back because obviously they know that the time's going by. Let's touch on stalkers in the last few minutes, and then you let people know where they can find you. So what's the difference? Because this is a question that's asked quite often. What's the difference between a man or woman that's eager and happy, enthusiastic meeting someone, and they are messaging, it might be full on to you, to other people it might not be, versus somebody who is a stalker, potential stalker? What's the difference? What should people be looking out for? Just what do you want to say about stalkers, just for a few minutes?
Well, there isn't really a difference per se, because anyone can fall foul of a stalker. So there was a story a few years ago about a lady in the UK. She met this guy in a pub. They were watching a live band. He asked her out. She declined. He started to stalk her. He stalked her to the extent that in the end he attacked her. I think he stabbed her 17 or 18 times. Thankfully she survived. But so stalker, and the other thing about stalking is people assume that it only happened to celebrities. That's not the case.
No, it's not.
Normal everyday people can get stalked all the time, because stalkers are obsessive personalities. Lots of stalkers actually have personality disorders. Stalkers can be an ex-partner, obviously, if they haven't accepted the relationship's over, especially in terms of if you're looking at abusive relationships, then the most dangerous time for a woman generally is when she's planning to leave or she's left, because in the UK on average 2 women a week are murdered by a partner or an ex-partner. So going back to stalkers, yes, stalkers obviously have a desire for control. They desire attention, and as I said, many of them are not actually mentally stable, so they'll have delusional beliefs. So they might meet someone like that case I mentioned earlier.
Yes.
This guy obviously had some obsession that this woman he'd met was the one for him, and she wasn't interested. So his stalking increased until he attacked her and almost killed her. But again, as I said, stalkers often target previous partners or have some type of connection. But stalking is something that's not really spoken about unless it's a high profile case that hits the news. But again, if it's never happened to a person, in their own experience, why would it be on their radar? I mean, I've been stalked probably twice or 3 times, so I'm well aware of stalking. I know what the implications are. I know what personal effect it had on me. But that was more telephone stalking.
Yes.
Again, this was an ex-partner. I finished the relationship. Phone up my place 60, 70, 80 times an evening. In the end, I went to the police, and it stopped. So that was fine. But again, I'm aware stalking exists because it's happened to me. But they're not stable people, and that's the most dangerous thing about it, because you don't know how far they're going to take it.
Exactly. And Nigel, I want to thank you for sharing. All right, because we want to have you back here on UK Black Men Talk Show, and I want to give you the opportunity to share with people where they can find you, because we're coming to the hour. Okay, guys, so today we looked at Happily Single with Nigel Beckles, romance, scams and stalkers. We touched on it. So Nigel's going to be back in October, guys, so you can send in questions from now until then. So Nigel, thanks so much, okay, for sharing today, passing through.
No, you're very welcome.
It's a pleasure. It's an honour, actually. And we celebrate black men here on UK Black Men Talk Show. So Nigel, let the people know where they can find you out there.
Oh, I had a guest on my podcast the other day. She said she was very Googleable. Right. Yes, well, I'm very Googleable. But cool. Yes, but my website is authornigelbeckles.com. Or just Google author Nigel Beckles. I'm easy to find online.
You hear that, guys? Nigel Beckles, How to Avoid Making the Big Relationship Mistakes, part of our author segment here on Black Men Talk. Nigel's going to be back next month. And Nigel, we want to hear some more people asking questions about what you shared, being stalked yourself. We don't often hear about men being stalked. So Nigel, thanks for sharing. Let's have your checkout number. I'm willing that it's gone higher. Your number and a word.
8 and happy.
8 and happy. We're happy you passed through today, Nigel. It's quick, but we want to say thanks on behalf of Supreme FM and UK Black Men Talk Show. Got that all out.
You're very welcome.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, always. It's a pleasure. Thanks, guys. That was Nigel Beckles, amazing, talented.